Hi, I'm Tom Burgess. Thank you for listening to the Weekly Wake Up, where we raise the alarm on what's really happening in our country. Though after this week's events, I'm not sure anyone knows. Now, this show is part of the Real Agenda network of podcasts of political change, and we certainly need some of that. So today we'll be talking about stop and search and how billionaires and mega corporations are becoming big benefactors of government welfare schemes. Which doesn't seem really like a good idea, but we'll talk a bit more about that. And of course, we can't go past this week without mentioning a bit about the demise of democracy, or indeed stopping a coup. Yes, that's a very important, but let me first introduce the team. Welcome back, Oliver. You had a great holiday.
I had a great holiday, Tom. Thank you very much. Very relaxing. Good to be back.
Well, it's good to see you. So you're fully refreshed, are you, and fired up, ready to go?
I am indeed. Been missing the show, Tom. Missing Hugh, Leah and Satya. And yourself, of course.
The country's changed since you've been away, though.
A lot has happened.
A lot has happened.
Indeed it has.
What's up with you, Satya? What's you're going to focus on today?
No, I'm really good, Tom. It's great to be here, and I'm going to talk about the Big Tent Ideas Festival that we both went to.
Making up the lineup here is also Hugh. How's the new job going, Hugh?
New job's brilliant. Thanks, Tom, for asking.
Well, it's good to have you here. And Leah, who is not able to join us today, has gone because she's gone off for a culture injection at the BBC Proms at the Albert Hall in London. But she'll be back next week, and we've asked her to sing us Rule Britannia. So we'll see how that goes. And Satya wants to join in as well.
I don't think I love to listen to Leah sing, actually. So
okay.
That'd be good.
I'd love to hear you sing, Satya.
No, I would as
Not
well.
in this lifetime.
Come on,
Come on, Satya.
Come on, you can do it.
We're a
Come
small
on.
team here.
Oh, look. They're getting at me now.
It's okay. Well, also here this week is the two studio cats, Gary and Brian, but they're actually in the green room having snacks at the moment, as they're not allowed in the studio at the same time as Satya.
That's really not fair.
But anyway, I'm pleased to say that we've got some lovely chocolate biscuits which are left over from last week, but I think they've all gone.
That's me,
You've
Tom.
topped
Sorry.
up your-
Sorry about that.
It's a smidgen now. Oh.
Okay, well, you're now full and happy, ready to go.
I am.
Okay, well, let's go then. Just before we get into our chat, just a reminder that we're always looking for new people on the team, whether to help with content production or marketing. So contact us now if you would like to get involved. Also, let us know what you think. Email at info@realagenda.org. We'd like to get your feedback. Each weekly wake-up show consists of, as it is today, of 4 panellists, well, if you include me. Each chooses a topic, and we talk about a recent event or media story connected with the fundamental issues of reducing inequality, resolving poverty, and bringing greater social and economic justice, because that's the real agenda. Now, this is discussed with a view as to what can be done to resolve these issues and what we, the people, can do about it. So let's get on with our chat. Satya's going to talk about the Big Tent Festival.
Yeah, this Big Tent Festival is...
Or Big Tent Ideas Festival.
The Big Tent Ideas Festival. I thought it was a really good idea to have it. I think it's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I think about 3,000 people attended, and it's only been going for about 3 years. You know, what I found really great about it was that there were lots of people of all different ages, different genders, and not the two genders. Men and women were
there. There are all sorts. It's very diverse.
Well, we talk about gender fluidity.
Come on,
They've given me the giggles now. And also very diverse. And each tent, there were lots of tents. How many tents were there, Tom?
10.
Yeah, and they were like things like the economy,
I'll tell
politics.
you, I've got the list here.
Why don't you read out the
Politics,
list?
economy, art and culture, environment, society, innovation, global, communities and health. That's 9. But anyway, it was good. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And, you know, I was really pleased that a lot of young people were there, and they were very engaged and interested in, you know, what was going on in the UK today. So,
I mean, personally, I found it very good for networking, because I actually met quite a few people I already knew, and also a few people, some that would like to help us with the real agenda. So I hope that happens. And also about 3 people who agreed to be interviewed for one of our shows coming up, including Tabitha Morton from More United and Gavin Esler, the ex-BBC correspondent, reporter, editor, and, you know, ex-Newsnight, and author of a few books, and author of a new book, which we'll be talking about when we talk to him.
It's called Brexit Without the Bull.
You
We
can
can say it.
It's
Bullshit.
the title of a book, Brexit Without the Bullshit. That's absolutely right. That's out now. So that's Gavin Essler's book.
I think there were, from me, there was just a couple of things that they could improve on. I mean, I just felt that given that the politics of today, what's going on in our country today, there just wasn't enough passion. I mean, I thought people were very polite and it was all, yes, and people were agreeing with each other on the whole. And I thought there could have been a lot more passion on some of the debates.
All the passion was at the Brexit rally. I was there. I was sending you pictures while you living the high life in those 9 tents. Sorry, I was there. And seriously, that is where I got so emotional there. I was seeing crowds of policemen.
This was last
coming
Saturday,
up,
right?
Last Saturday, while you guys were at the Big Tent Festival.
Yeah.
But I spoke to 2 policemen actually that were trying to get rid of the crowds. It's not their fault. They're just trying to do their job, obviously. They couldn't say that they were against Brexit. I tried to get it out of them, but they were dressed as policemen and they had to stay very impartial. Everyone's so emotional there. So that's probably why
that's where the passion was.
That's where the passion was.
Well, we tried to get there, but we missed the revolution, didn't we, Tom?
By the time we got there,
it was all over. On a last point, going back to the Big Tent Festival,
Ideas
Festival, was that one person did make a very good point. One woman said the tickets were prohibitive of lots of people who would have liked to have gone and couldn't go. So she pointed out to the organisers that actually they should ensure that more people were enabled to go by making sure that the tickets were affordable.
It's good to talk about ideas. It's good for people to talk together. You just hope that we can get more action by getting together like this. And it was very much non-partisan and across party.
Yeah.
There were a few extreme views, I think, expressed from sort of both sides on some of the talks. But there you go. Anyway, thanks very much to the organisers.
Very interesting, all in all.
Yeah, no.
So what actually comes out of that event then? I mean, you just touched on it, Tom, about actions, but is there sort of a forum where there's follow-ups, there's execution of those? Is it just ideas coming together?
Well, I'm not aware of any particular forum. It's just ideas coming together. But where's the action? This comes back to our problem of political will. We can see how we're not actually getting any decisions anywhere with the current political setup.
Nothing's happening.
There are plenty of ideas and there's a lot of practical recommendations that could make good policy.
Absolutely. And I think, as you say about political will, I think the political will, communities and the ideas have to come together and sort of work more closely, which is, I don't think, really happens particularly on the political side, despite Savage Javi's sort of spending.
That could actually bring us on to the other topic we were going to talk about, because we couldn't really let this week go without talking about the developments. We actually record this on Wednesday evening. It goes out Friday, so this isn't a live show. Probably the whole world will have changed by the time people listen to this. But anyway, we thought we'd just have a quick chat about the events of the last week. So who wants to kick off on that one?
Just a couple of hours ago, Chancellor Sajid Javid declares ends to austerity. What about that, guys?
Well, it's already been declared once, a few times.
Didn't May declare it?
I mean, what a load of...
At the beginning of her reign.
Exactly. Here, the government has declared it has turned the page on austerity. Yay! Brilliant. Fantastic. As it sets out plans to raise spending across all departments. Chancellor Sajid Javid outlined 13.8 billion of investment in areas including health, education and the police in what he says was the fastest increase in spending for 15 years. Is it really the end of austerity? Quite a few people are thinking, well, it's looking like things are getting a little bit better. However...
But who for?
Exactly, who for? So the director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, Paul Johnson, he said that Mr. Javid's plans signalled a real change in direction on spending, but most areas in public service spending were still much below 2010 levels. Health is the big exception here. Overall, the IFS said spending would still be 3% below its level a decade ago and more than 9% lower in per-person terms. So it's still not great, is it?
It certainly isn't great for the 14 million in poverty and the 300,000 that are homeless.
We don't actually hear much about poverty, even when they say austerity is ended. There's nothing that I've heard where they say, and this is what we're going to do for that 14 million poor people. It's all about cutting taxes for the rich.
I think for me, this is, again, it's about PR, it's about politicising policies. They've announced these very good intentions around education, spending, and the key areas, but it's about an election at the end of the day, in my view, essentially. And I think, as you said, Satya, with talk about food banks, we're just talking about the real poor, the 14 million people who are really affected. He's not really talking about that or playing to them. He's playing to the electorate that he wants to play to.
Yeah, this is all about an election. It's got nothing to do with Brexit. It's got nothing to do with austerity or not. This is about Boris Johnson getting an election, getting a majority, and then doing what the hell he ever wants with this country.
Johnson is a fantastic PR man. Let's face it.
No doubt about it.
He's an ex-journalist. And one of the key things to remember is if you want to be putting a message across, you don't start using key words like poverty, like negative words. You don't use them if you want to put a positive agenda across.
I would take issue with you. I think he's a terrible PR guy. Having had a whole career in public relations, can't get away with it in PR by lying to people or grossly overstating the truth or not even knowing what you're talking about.
You can put across a picture that you want.
You can spin it.
Yeah, spin it. And I think
simplicity. It's all about simplicity when you're keeping the message extremely simple, avoiding any complications, any...
But the thing is, he is so transparent. So people...
Well, not to everyone,
days,
though.
Not to everyone.
Not to everyone, actually.
For us.
Yeah.
But 'cause I was going to say that we were talking about this earlier, that as I was driving up to the studio, I was listening to LBC of all stations. Every person who called in was pro Boris Johnson and was saying what a wonderful job he was doing. And they were lapping it up, everything that he was saying. And I'm thinking... Heaven's sakes.
But see, this comes back to my point. I think we're going to talk about this, about the stop and search. I think that's a perfect example. For me, I was trying to work out why are they increasing the powers around stop and search when very little evidence supports that it deals with solving violent crime. But for me, it's about playing to the national mood, it's about politics, and it's about PR, essentially. Because if you look at the base of the Conservative Party, this is what they want to hear. They want Conservatives to be seen to be doing things, whether or not it actually helps at the operational level or down on the ground.
No, you're absolutely right. Talking about cutting taxes, tackling crime, putting more into the NHS, all of that stuff, and it all plays to his base. That's what it's doing, and it's all about an election.
So the other point to bear in mind is, where does this money suddenly come from? Which it's great that it's being spent. But what they refuse to do, and which is staggering, is to ask the wealthy or the super wealthy to contribute more, to invest more in this country, and to put more of the money back that we all help create, because there is enough money to go around, and we could do that. We can come back to some of these points, but I think we should talk about the stop and search, the topic Oliver just started on. Is there something else you'd like to add to that?
One of my main angles around the stop and search is that we talk about the wider issue of social justice or social injustice. It's quite well known that black people in particular are 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people. In London, that figure rises to 12 times, and if you go outside of London, it's 26 times. And I think if you're looking to work with communities to build a better national mood and unite people, really, is this the right sort of solution to fighting crime or to building the communities? I don't think it is. There are other ways you could use those resources for putting back into communities, support groups and other things like that. I mean, the evidence is clear. Stop and search does not solve violent crime. And there's lots of reports to support it. I mean, there has been some evidence, I think, in 28 last year, basically, where there was a increase in stop and search, and there were levels of crime decreased, but that was for sort of low-level drug crimes rather than sort of violent crime.
My view is that we've because of losing all those numbers of police, the community policemen who would go into schools, who would be there on the beat, talking to people, particularly young people, making relationship with them. All of that has gone through the cuts. And so crime has gone up, particularly with young people. And we all know the state of knife crime with young people. It is horrific, it's terrible. So we have to do something about it.
I never knew my local Bobby.
Well, I did. I used
Yeah.
to put on dances with him. He was a great guy.
But I think the key is about communities and getting integrated with the communities.
I think what they've done now is that they've made the legislation around it is so loose and so broad so that people can be stopped very, very easily. So whereas before, this is what I've read, whereas before you could only stop somebody if you believed that a crime was going to take place. Now you can stop if you were sure that a crime was going to take place. Now you can stop people if you think that a crime might take place.
Absolutely,
and that's a big change
That is
because
absolutely.
it broadens everything out. It gives the police so much more power, and that means there's so much more room for abuse. And particularly if we have, we've talked a lot here about unconscious bias. And that's why I think a lot of black young men are being stopped.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't do anything for community relations.
And I don't have anything per se against stop and search, but as long as it's proportionate. Clearly, it's not proportionate, as you've alluded to, Satya, in terms of the effects of young black men and the unconscious bias as such. And so if it's proportionate, if they're working closely with communities, it can help. Fail to understand the government's rationale when there's very little evidence to support that it's very effective in bringing down violent crime.
We need to get right back and look at the symptoms. Why are these young men doing this? Why are they going out with knives? Why is there gang violence?
And just to make a quick reference, actually, I was reading an article around food. There's food banks now, which are specifically providing food for people on low incomes. Now they're extending their services to provide a more holistic service where they can help them with other forms of problems that they may have. And I think that's the approach that we should be looking at, a holistic approach to solving issues rather than these very black and white approaches.
If wages were higher, if welfare benefits were higher, enough to live off, if renters did not have to pay council tax, which always used to be the case ages ago, and also if there was a more affordable housing, which it could be if councils bought up land and then built houses, which would be a lot cheaper because the land value would not be taken into account. This would mean that a lot more people would have better incomes and could be able to do these things. And we're not solving those fundamental issues. We're just making life harder. And you can imagine if life's tough, it turns you to crime, doesn't it? You need to get some money from somewhere. Turn to drugs and dealing and whatever.
Let's face it as well, this is another point, is that if you are in work, you are going to be dressed for work. And that plays a major difference as well. The way you're dressed is clearly, when I'm in my, just
Hugo Boss suit.
right, yeah, right. When I'm in my Hugo Boss tracksuit bottoms, more like
The hoodie one.
the hoodie one, I feel different. I'm in a different state of mind, and people see me differently. They think, oh, actually, he's just gone out for a run. Okay, he's not in a suit. He's not in a work mode. And then all of a sudden you think, well, you're putting a hoodie on compared to someone that isn't in a hoodie. You think, well, that person's in work, that person's not in work.
Yeah, Hugh, I think that's a really, really, really good point. But I just want to challenge you on one thing.
Please do.
So as a white man, do
Yeah.
you feel in the same way as a black man would?
Absolutely
When you go out, do you ever worry about being stopped and searched?
Of course not. And I know that. I told you I went to a school where I was the minority. My friends were black. They were black. They were Asian. They were North African, and I was the white guy. You know what? No one looked at me. Of course not. Which is horrendous to say.
I think they would look at you today. I just want to tell everybody, Hugh is wearing a swanky pair of very tight shorts. So they would look at you today.
This is going off track here. So
And the shirt.
Oliver, this was your topic. Is there anything else you want to add on this before we move on to the next one? Our next topic today?
No, that's. I think the key for me, again, is about working more closely with communities. I think the government needs to come up with a better reason than just a blanket approach to stop and search so that we don't create more divide in our country.
We don't want to disenfranchise our black young men any more than they already feel disenfranchised. I think we need to do a lot more to kind of work with them and bring them into a place where they feel they've got opportunities, because at the moment, many of them don't feel that they have opportunities here.
And that's exactly it. Equal opportunities for everyone.
Let's move on to our next story, which was actually something I wanted to bring up. There was an article on the Common Dreams website, and it was actually referring to my friend Bernie Sanders. Indeed, is my friend. I have met him on a couple of occasions and worked on his campaign in 2016, so I'm always listening to what he's got to say. And because one of the things he wants to do, and this I'll tell you in a minute how it relates back to the UK, to force billionaires off welfare. And Sanders would tax corporations to fund 100% of the public assistance their low-paid workers received. And he's pointing the finger particularly at companies like Amazon, where the CEO is worth 155 billion and his wealth increases by 260 million every single day. But his workers are needing to claim a huge amount to rely on food stamps and Medicaid, because, of course, they don't get healthcare, and other forms of government assistance to survive. The American government is actually paying out people because companies like Amazon are not paying their workers enough that they need to live off. Bernie Sanders invited the CEOs of Amazon, Disney and McDonald's and Walmart to participate in a public event with some of their low-wage workers and attempt to justify paying their employees poverty wages. None of the CEOs accepted the invitation.
Surprise.
This also references something we mentioned on the 16th of August. And save money, live better is the tagline from Asda, the third largest supermarket chain in the UK. There's 120,000 workers, and their workers claimed 221 million in working tax credit and housing benefits. So rarely we're subsidising Asda. So I just wonder what anybody thought about that.
I've got one question about that. You're saying that the companies should be forking out 220 million more in wages?
Well, I think that would be a great idea, but I think that I think at least they could pay their workers a bit more, so that they see some people that are needing to claim welfare benefit are because they've got special circumstances, disabled or caring situations that they need to pay for. But basically, a lot of them are on very poor wages. So yes, the large companies should be paying their people more.
I've got a second question about that. How do you stop companies only employing people who aren't on benefits? Because you're all of a sudden, if you're
Hang
an
on
employer,
a minute. You're not stopping people, employing people that aren't on benefits. The people that are working for a company and they're having to claim benefits because they haven't got enough to live on.
They're not paid enough. They're on low income.
The minimum wage needs to go up to at least a real living wage, not the national living wage, which is basically a higher minimum wage. It's not based on the actual cost you need to live on to have a basic lifestyle. Therefore, all these people need to be on that, but they need to be higher. It's not really enough.
I think one of the solutions, and I think where a lot of corporations are shifting now, and I think mentioned this offline around the business roundtable, advocating companies realign their goals from sort of looking after shareholders and looking after the environment and creating a more fair society through the companies, through their companies, could create a realignment and have that sort of shift in paying workers more. Because I think at the moment, public companies at the very least, they're focused on shareholder returns almost at whatever cost, and that does affect how much they pay employees indirectly. So if they can shift that focus to create more inclusive capital, to create more environmental concerns or sort of ESG concerns, that could be a way. But I'm not sure how that's going to happen. It's going to be a long-term plan, I guess, actually.
Well, it needs to step it up a bit, because the fact is, this is not good for society. And it's like we've talked on our new series, Profit for Purpose, about the B corporations and those companies that are seeking to build a more, working towards a more inclusive and sustainable economy. And it's not just shareholders. If we're going to survive not only as a country, a nation and a planet, we have to think about a lot more. And it's about the people.
Our society as a whole needs a complete rethink about where our values lie, because who are we valuing in this country? If we're a strong economy, which the government's telling us, if we're doing well and we can survive without being in the EU because we're a very strong, very great country, actually, why have we got 14 million people living on the poverty line? Is that what we value? Do we want to change it? And I think we have to have a radical shift in our thinking in terms of who are we going to support here? And in that sense, business has a huge role to play. to
And also,
make
it's better.
those changes.
It makes better business to be more socially responsible, and there's a lot of there is a shift towards it with the B corporations and some of the consumer brands definitely want to see it. People are now more interested in brands that have got some social purpose or some social responsibility.
As you say, I think they do need to step it up, and I guess the government could play their part. I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously, Jaffe's got these spending plans. They could, they could reward companies who are shown to do things that affect society in a more positive way, that have more environmentally encouraging policies and things like that, rather than sort of blanket regulation.
No, exactly. And I'll tell you a very good way of doing it. It's in my book called From Here to Prosperity. It's called social offsetting. So what you actually do, you increase the corporation tax, and then those companies that are doing things properly, they're paying their workers decent wages, they're not paying their CEO 300 times as much, they've got support schemes, they've got profit shares and other benefits to not just their staff but the community, things like that. They would get tax breaks because they're actually making it taking what we ask the government to do. So we don't want no more regulations. We want a carrot to incentivize people to really do well and to think of the community and to think of the people and the planet.
And see, these aren't big changes that are required. These are almost tweaks, but they can make a huge difference to society as a whole.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think what Boris is announcing at the moment, or Javid is announcing at the moment, is they're tweaking the ends, and they're all done for one purpose. And when that's over, it's all going to go back to business as usual. It's going to be business as usual. Sorry, I'm being very pessimistic here, given that we're supposed to be a positive show.
We are positive, and it's about...
The issue is that we got the ideas, we know what needs to be done, we know how it can be solved. Who's going to do it?
I think our listeners really want to know one thing, though. Tom, where can they get your book?
Oh, they can get their book by emailing info@realagenda.org.
Oh, that's a plug if I heard one.
It's also on Amazon and all good bookstores, okay? So I recommend it. Anyway, that's the show for this week. We hope we've woken you up and that we've helped, informed, inspire, and you want to get involved to make change happen. You can email us, as I've just said, info@realagenda.org, or you can contact us via our website. Now, the team today is chomping at the bit because they want to talk more about the disastrous things that have been going on this week, but we're going to have to stop there. So just to tell you...
We'll save it for next week, Tom.
It'll be a whole different story next week. Anyway, so what's coming up on the Real Agenda? Well, we're talking to Make Votes Matter, which should be very interesting. We're coming soon is our new series, Profit for Purpose. We're talking to Paul Lindley from Ella's Kitchen and Julian Richard, the founder of Richard Sounds. And of course, coming back next week is the Weekly Wake Up. I should be back with you next Friday. Special thanks to our sponsors, the Reverse Media Group, one of the fastest growing search and media companies. Find out why at reversemediagroup.com. So it's goodbye from the team. Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Satya.
And Oliver.
And Hugh.
Thank you very much. One thing is certain, people want to see change to a more compassionate and just society, as well as courageous politicians. Well, there's a word. Prepared to do the right thing for people over party. It's urgent. It's up to us to make it happen. That's the Real Agenda. I'm Tom Burgess. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.